Was most valuable right after he did the work.
I do feel lengthened and lighter, and particularly when I first got off the table, I felt like I was floating off the floor.
When he was pressing on my lower back, it felt like there was little needles underneath my skin moving up and down.
I found the experience is not painful at all.
In parts it was terrible, in parts it was okay.
I mean, there's very few moments that I would even classify as pain. It was a rather ecstatic experience.
What you see is part of an hour in so-called structural integration. Structural integration is a technique which aims at organizing, at ordering a body, at bringing muscles back into the place where they belong in terms of their theoretical order. The young man whom you see working is Bob Hines, a practitioner in structural integration, sometimes called Rolfing from the fact that it was developed by Ida P. Rolf, namely myself, and that this is part of a technique to make a person feel more effective, more efficient, to make him better organized, better coordinated, because he is in the gravitational field and accepting it and working in it and working with it instead of fighting it as the average random body has to do. In structural integration, we expect to give a cycle of 10 sessions. There is a reason for this. We are not dealing with local problems. We are not dealing with the kind of thing that you can say, well, I fixed that, that's all. We are dealing with an attempt to make a body a sturdier human being, to make a body more secure, more adequate within the field of gravity. Now this requires that muscles be balanced. They need to be balanced around a vertical line. And when I talk about balancing muscles, I'm talking about balancing the right side against the left side, about balancing the front of the body against the back of the body, and finally about balancing the innermost muscles against the outermost muscles, the inside against the outside. This is the most important of those balances. And we start from the outside working in, and it takes us 10 hours before we can get to the place where we can really balance.
Have you injured this arm at some time?
Yeah, in junior high school at the age of 13 or 14, tumbling, I broke the collarbone.
Bodies carry their history written within them. In the event of accidents, and sometimes quite minor accidents, little Johnny falls, and Mama looks him over and he's still operational. And Mama tells the neighbor, we're so lucky, Johnny didn't hurt himself. Nothing happened to Johnny, but actually things have happened to Johnny, and various of Johnny's muscles have been displaced slightly, so that Johnny, in continuing to move around, to run around, to climb around, is using a different muscular pattern. And that different muscular pattern places itself on top of what should be the effective muscular pattern of the uninjured body. But it all talks to the seeing eye of what has gone on to displace the muscular patterns within the body.
What I can tell is that there was injury over here on this shoulder, both from the way it moved feels.
In the cycle of 10 sessions, which is basic to this work, there is a complete overseeing of what is going on in terms of the muscular and fascial patterns of the body. What we are interested in doing is setting muscular groupings where they belong in order to work most efficiently in the gravity, within the gravity field, in order to support the body with the least effort. That means that you have to induce a balance. And you induce this balance by getting two sides symmetrical, front and back symmetrical, inside and outside symmetrical. And if you're trained to see it, you can see to what extent you have succeeded in doing this through the changes in the outer contour. This becomes apparent in our before and after 10 pictures. This young lady is a model in a class in Miami and actually sent to us by a children's clinic. She's only about 17 years old, perhaps. And you see here how the contour of her back and the contour of her abdomen display the fact that her lumbar structure is much too far anterior. As a result, she's compensating with these buttocks much too far back. Whereas at the end of 10 hours, so much of this has changed. The lumbar structure has come back. Because the lumbar structure comes back, the hip structure drops, and that buttock structure becomes much more normalized. Her neck begins to sit up on her spine, over the spine, supported by the underlying spine. Here you have the neck structure, and it makes you suspect that it's breaking. There seems to be no support below it. A Rolfing, a structural integration session, demonstrates that a body is a plastic medium. It demonstrates that this plastic medium can be changed back to the model which we accept as being energy-wise a more efficient unit. In order for a more efficient unit to come from a body, that body must be arranged in a symmetrical pattern around a vertical line. You have to deal with the body as an aggregate of blocks. You have to change the positioning of the blocks so that the center of gravity in one is virtually above the center of gravity in another.
Feel that?
Child or adult, you see certain landmarks, and those landmarks betray to you a great deal about the underlying structure. You may see that a knee is directly opposite a knee, that you can draw a horizontal line, but the chances are you won't, because in random bodies what you find is an oblique line. And you find an oblique line connecting the various similar landmarks on the pelvis. You find an oblique line connecting similar landmarks on the shoulders. Let me say parenthetically that these drawings were made from actual photographs of a little 3-year-old who had a defective hip in one of our earlier classes. And when you look at that, you see these blocks twisted. Some of them are too far back, some of them too far forward, some of them are rotated around, and some of them actually get tipped. They're higher in the back than they are in the front and so forth. And you look at that child and you say, well, that child has very poor posture. But he doesn't have poor posture. He has poor structure. The object of Rolfing, the goal of Rolfing, is to transform these oblique lines into horizontal lines. Because the basic goal of Rolfing is to establish a horizontal pelvis.
Can you tell the difference as you breathe?
Yeah.
How does it feel different?
I can breathe deeper.
Here, for instance, is a group of children. They would be called a healthy, normal group of children by their parents, their neighbors, etc. But look at them. See the fashion in which this child, and this child, and this child, and some of the other children have their necks just collapsing into their torso and the head into the neck. They have little neck. And I will predict that this tendency towards fat in this child is going to continue because she does not have the length for the amount of flesh that is due to be on her. On the other hand, if you look at this little girl, you see that she has much longer neck, that her head is going straight up. The top of her head forms a horizontal. That the whole story of this child is a going up, a spreading out, a lengthening story. The child defends itself. I think this is the first thing you see. It defends itself against fear. It defends itself against parental anger by lifting its shoulders and bringing its shoulders forward into a general defensive position. then, of course, there are other pictures, the picture of grief. Many times a child will copy an adult, will copy his much beloved father, and father is carrying the burdens of the world on his shoulders. So Sonny adopts that picture of carrying a burden on his shoulders. And he adopts it for so long that he no longer voluntarily can get out of it.